Avengers Endgame smashed its way into box office records and into the hearts of every fan of the MCU. This move marked the end of an era for the MCU, and it did it in style, showing off just how much power exists in both the MCU and the CGI booth at Disney. In today's video, we're going to be taking some glances at what the MCU's biggest project looks like with no CGI, and trust me, it's going to blow you away. Stick around because you're not going to want to miss a second of this video. First, planking returns. If you were alive in the 2010s and you had access to the internet, you probably remember the viral trend that swept the world known as planking. Planking is when you lay flat on your stomach and plank in an odd spot, like over a balcony, on a car, or on your family's table while you're trying to eat dinner. The goal was to plank in the weirdest or funniest spot possible. Well, I think Iron Man and Star-Lord are going to be taking home the grand prize, because these two planked right in the middle of a movie set. Anytime a character had to fly, the scene would be shot with the actor laying down on a platform that was covered in a green screen, so it would look like the character was flying when the CGI was implemented. Looks awesome in the final product, but without CGI, the flying looks downright hilarious. It's like Chris Pratt and Robert Downey Jr. decided to take naps in their costumes instead of preparing to fight Thanos. The shot that offends the most is easily when all the Avengers have been resurrected and the entirety of the army charges into battle. With no CGI, it is a few people running into battle with a group of people taking a nap in the air. No wonder Doctor Strange let Iron Man sacrifice himself in the end. Next, a colorless world. The MCU is filled with colorful get-ups ranging from Captain America's red, white, and blue star-spangled suit all the way to Nebula's blue body and limbs. The world we see when we step into the MCU is vibrant and bright. However, when the CGI is turned off, the color we know and love disappears. That's right, all the set pieces that would be colored are actually white, allowing for the CGI to add the color and the appropriate wear and tear. For example, the Infinity Gauntlet that the Avengers make to reverse Thanos' snap is the iconic Iron Man hot rod red and gold. However, during shooting, the gauntlet set piece is actually plain white. This allows for the editors to make the gauntlet look however they want it to in order to fit the scene, because it is brand new when Iron Man, Hulk, and Rocket Raccoon create it in the Avengers compound, but it becomes very beat up and worn once it reaches the battle between the Avengers and Thanos. So rather than making multiple set pieces, it's much easier to have the suits be white and allow the CGI team to fill in the blanks, which in this case is the entire set piece. Along with the gauntlet being white, most of the suits, including Iron Man's, War Machine's, Nebula's cybernetic attachments, and the Iron Spider suit for Spider-Man, are all white while on set. Maybe they do this to prevent Tom Holland from spoiling any costume details. Up next, fighting ghosts. During the film, many Avengers have to go up against a being from another planet, and spoiler alert, the team at Disney did not ship in aliens to beat up for the sake of this film. We think anyway. But in many of the action scenes that involved an Avenger fighting an alien, there would only involve one person. That person would be the actor who played the Avenger in the question. For example, when Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, is chased through the collapsed sewers of the Avengers compound by a group of Thanos' savage space dogs, the actor, Jeremy Renner, just had to imagine where the aliens would be when shooting this scene, screaming and stabbing at nothing for the entirety of the shot. Hilarious, right? Along with this scene was the unforgettable scene in which the Avengers take on the extraterrestrial army in order to prevent Thanos from destroying the universe as the Avengers know it. There are millions of aliens, but in the actual studio, there were zero, obviously. But hilariously, these actors got paid millions of dollars to pretend to fight aliens, and in some instances, the actor was not even actually in the fight. For example, when Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Ant-Man fight and kill Cole Obsidian, not a single actor was present. The entire scene was shot on a green screen with the four characters all added in after the fact with CGI. There were a few instances, however, when an actor actually had to fight against a real opponent. Those instances were few and far between. Now, Bruce Banner. For those of you who saw Endgame, which is hopefully all of you, you probably noticed that Bruce Banner's Incredible Hulk failed to actually be anything like his usual comic book counterpart. Instead, Bruce traded in the signature Hulk smash for an actual actual functioning relationship with the big guy, turning him into Professor Hulk. This version of the character is a blend of Bruce Banner, the scientist, and the Hulk, the big smashy guy. This version of the character, while being totally different, did share one thing with the Hulk we have known and loved over the entirety of the MCU. That is the fact that he is entirely CGI. In previous MCU outings, Mark Ruffalo, the actor for Bruce Banner the Hulk, would don a motion capture suit in order to smash his opponents to bits. However, in this version, all they needed was Ruffalo's face and voice, as the Hulk looks and sounds like Bruce Banner rather than the Hulk. Without CGI, we would have gotten a screen that was filled with Mark Ruffalo sitting in a chair with a whole bunch of white dots on his face, instead of the big green ragless monster we got in the film. If we just got a facial capture version of the character, I'm pretty sure Thanos would have gotten the stones again, destroyed all living things in the universe. So let's be glad we got Professor Hulk in the final product. No sets? Of course there was a set, it just was not nearly as physically complex as you would have thought when watching the movie. For example, one would assume that for the scene in which Tony Stark and Steve Rogers travel back in time to Camp Lea, the birthplace of Captain America, it would be logical to assume that they shot that live on location at some concrete slab in the middle of the street, right? With extras walking around in proper era-appropriate attire, doing things that those people would have done at an army base, right? Wrong. In fact, the entire shot is CGI. The ground, the sky, the trucks, even the people. Not a single thing in that shot is real. They placed CGI trucks in a CGI parking lot with CGI people on a loop to make it look like it was busy. Crazy, right? Makes you wonder, why don't they just shoot that shot in real life? Why make the whole thing CGI? For starters, guarantees that the shot does not get messed up by somebody walking out of formation or tripping. It also is much cheaper for the studio as they do not have to rent the space or hire the extras. The whole thing's made by CGI crew, which helps significantly in cost. Which probably was not a huge deal as the film had $1 billion budget and made billions in profit, so I'm sure everyone involved is doing just fine. Additionally, almost every single shot that was shot outside is made with a CGI background. The final fight in New York, the fight on Vormir, the fight on Morag, all of it. Sometimes an actual actor is in the shot, but not always, which means that for some of the sequences in the film, it's literally voices dubbed into a shot full of CGI. Hilarious, right? Lastly, Rocket Raccoon is played by a person in a suit. Tony Stark thought he was a Build-A-Bear. Peter Quill thinks he's a vermin sometimes, and Drax thinks he's a rabbit. Turns out they're all wrong. In reality, Rocket is often played by Sean Gunn, the brother of James Gunn, who directed the Guardians of the Galaxy films in the MCU. That's right, Sean Gunn dons a large, bright green suit and bends down onto his knees to portray the wisecracking raccoon. And let me tell you that the set pictures are hilarious. Honestly, how would anyone be able to do a serious scene when they're talking to a grown man in a bright green suit? I mean, it is impossible. Look at him, for goodness sake. Honestly, I wish they'd do an episode of What If, where Rocket Raccoon's actually played by a guy crouching in a green suit. I mean, I'd watch that. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching.